everyone. Welcome to Woolen Spinning. My name is Rachel. This is Saturday, October 2nd, 2021. Can you guys believe that it is Saturday, October 2nd already? Like, we're into October. Like, how is that even a thing? How is everybody? We've got people here this morning, part of the Patreon community from Maryland. We've got Chicago, Wisconsin, Vermont, Ohio, Thetis Island here in British Columbia. I haven't actually been there, Emily. It's on my bucket list, so I'll have to come and visit. We've got Victoria, British Columbia, New England, the UK, lots of people from the UK. Anyhow, it's so good to see you guys. Thank you so much for being here. We've got several people this morning who are doing support spindling. They're support spindling their breeding color study. Girls of my own heart. And, we've got Winnipeg. Lauren is 2 hours north of in Manitoba. North Dakota, it's just awesome, you guys. Northern Norway, all over the world. It's fantastic. People are mixing. I think Brittany is doing, she's mixing dough for sourdough. And she's doing watching while she's finishing ribbing on a sweater test knit for Bluebird Box. That sounds awesome, Brittany. South Yorkshire, Sarah's joining us. Sarah, it was so good to see you yesterday in book club. I didn't say anything, you guys, because the kids kept interrupting me. And I actually have only just started the book, so I didn't have a whole lot to say anyways, but it was really interesting being able to participate and just listen to the conversation. So our fall book club has finally started up again. Last Friday, a week ago, was our first meeting for our, we generally have two books going at the same time. One is sort of meant to be along the themes of anti-racism. But what's ended up kind of happening is we've been swapping back and forth between fiction and nonfiction. So generally what ends up happening is we've got a fiction book going, and then at the same time we have a nonfiction going. That's kind of what has ended up happening. And we tried to sort of label the two books and get the two clubs and kind of keep them separate. But I've noticed more and more that what's happening is we're calling it the fiction nonfiction, because either book, both books, either books or both books end up sort of following anti-racism themes, because we are the community and the group seems to be very motivated to look at books and look at things that we maybe otherwise wouldn't be doing, that they maybe otherwise wouldn't get in other book clubs, which is really cool. And this organically kind of came out of the community from the sort of grassroots, if you will. And I sort of just like jumped on the on the sort of enthusiasm and was like, I love reading. I read a ton. I would love for this community to do that. So I've kind of sailed on the coattails of Becca's amazing initiative. So thank you so much to Becca for doing that for all of us. So what we're doing right now is Isabel, oh my goodness, I was just reading it this morning. Isabel, I'm going to butcher it. I'm so sorry, you guys. Isabel, it's W. Isabel Wilkerson's book, Cast, The Origins of Our Discontents. And then the other book that we're looking at is The Left Hand of Darkness. And actually, I cannot remember the author of that book. So if somebody has that and they want to pop that into the live chat, that would be fantastic. So we're doing The Left Hand of Darkness and we're reading Cast right now. So a little bit different for us in terms of our fiction book, because it's a science fiction, which has been different. So there's some people who've joined book club. Nicole was there and Sarah was there. It was so good to see Eleanor and Amanda. I'm totally forgetting people. Leanne was there. It was just really good to see a couple of new faces. Thank you, you guys. Ursula Le Guin. Diana, of course, would remember that because her daughter's, one of her daughters' names is Ursula. Yes, we have an in-person festival today. It is Knit City Mini. Me and Kelly are going to go together. I think Kelly's friend Lauren is coming as well. So hopefully we'll meet up at some point there. If you are going to Knit City, please, please, please come and say hello. I will be there this afternoon. I do have tickets for tomorrow morning. I am not sure that I'm going to go back. I have a night shift tomorrow night, and we've got to get loaded to get ready to go away for Thanksgiving, which is next weekend. I know it's weird for our American viewers. They're like, what, Thanksgiving in October? Yes, Canadian Thanksgiving is next weekend. So the weekend of the 9th, 10th, 10th, 11th, 12th, whatever those dates are. So I have to, Mike and I need to actually get ready to go so that we're actually ready to go. So I may or may not go back tomorrow, but I will be there this afternoon. So please come and say hello. Oh, that's funny, Vicky. Her mom's name is Ursula as well. It's not a common name, but it's a really pretty name. I like it. So yes, Knit City this afternoon, and obviously it's Knit City Mini, and there will be masks, and they're doing the whole thing. So for those who are going to be there, please don't be a stranger. Please come and say hello. And I suspect what will happen afterwards is after the show is over, like after we have to all leave at I think it's 5 o'clock, Kelly. I suspect that we'll kind of congregate outside because the Grocery Girls Knit Night doesn't start until 8 p.m. So we'll kind of figure out what we're going to do afterwards, whether we're going to go somewhere for dinner or just grab a food truck that's right there and just sit and knit and visit if the weather is decent, because right now it's looking pretty overcast. So oh, Diana, you should totally go. It's only for a few hours. Hemming and hawing may just stay put. I know, I'm feeling the same way. Yes, I am feeling the same way. We have had a week. It's been a really good week. It has just gone so fast. I looked at the clock yesterday and I was like, how is it 3 p.m. on a Friday afternoon? Like, how is it Friday already? Like, is anybody else feeling this way? I don't know. I did do a couple of things this week, so we'll talk about these little things that I've been kind of chipping away at very slowly. I have worked the majority of my time when I do get time to do my own stuff. I have actually been working on my OHS Master Weaver Unit 1. I've been putting all of my samples. I've got them all hemmed and cut and trimmed, and they're all ready to go in their file folders with their windows, so that they're all organized and you can see them. Because that's actually proving to be just as time consuming as the weaving itself, which is kind of the nature of the beast with these kind of things, because presentation is important. So I have been working quite a bit on that. And then the reason why the show started a few minutes late is because Nora is sitting right here. She kind of hangs out now with the podcast rather than trying to get her somewhere in the morning to my mom's house at like 7 a.m. because James is on the soccer field right now. She is working on the rigid heddle on my little samplet loom, and she started a scarf yesterday and has been weaving up a storm. So she wove almost all day yesterday, and she's back at it this morning. She's doing a great job and learning lots, and she's learning how to untangle if she gets skips and stuff, and she's learning how to sort of do her edges and her selvages. And for a first project, I think this is really great for her. So she wanted to try it on the rigid heddle. She's done it before, but just a very small project. I offered her the Jane loom, but she felt that it was too big. So I'm hoping that maybe she'll graduate to the Jane in the future. So there is a light box there, and you can see, like, you'll see the bright light, but I am going to turn my camera so that you guys can see her, and then we'll run the credit. So there she is. She doesn't want me to show her. Fair enough. So she's weaving away in her pajamas, and she's got this gorgeous little scarf going, and I'll show it to you guys when it's done. So anyhow, that is what's going on. We've got community participation today. I've got some finished projects to tell you about. And the big thing is we've got our very final sheep breed spinning fiber for today. So this is Icelandic. It's one of my most favorite fibers to spin. Oh, Nora, they're telling you, good job, well done. I'm excited to see what she's weaving. How lovely. They're all telling you what a great job you're doing. Now she's got a big grin on her face. I know Megan, I'm not sure if Megan's here today, but I know Megan's kids, Megan Likey, she, you guys know her as Puddle Gum when she's on here in the live chat. And anybody on the Slack channel knows Megan really super well. She has been teaching her kids how to weave, her boys, and they work on rigid heddles, and they've done some band weaving and some inkle weaving and whatnot. And it's just so fantastic to kind of see her start to get going. So yeah, really, really fun. And I'm glad now that she's old enough that I can set her up. She warped completely on her own. I showed her how to do it. I showed her where the peg was, and she walked up and down the table and did it herself. So, you know, she's really kind of at that age now. She's 7.5. Her half birthday was 3 days ago, where she can really do this stuff on her own, which is really fantastic. I can really just show her. So we will be spinning our Icelandic today, and then we've got some community participation. So that will round out our show. I'll see you guys on the other side. right, so I'm going to start unbraiding this Icelandic, and we're just going to talk a little bit about Icelandic. There was a great question that came up in the presentation that I did last Sunday for Fluff to Stuff. Thank you to Mina and Grace and Mars for having me on Fluff to Stuff. It was really, really fun. We went over the hour, but we were having such a great conversation, and I said to Mars, is it okay to keep going? And she's like, absolutely. So there were some great questions. But one of the questions that came through was just a very thoughtful one, was I've got an Icelandic fleece and I don't know what to do with it. And, you know, how do I spin it, and how do I not make really wiry yarn? In the credits this week, in the photographs, you saw some very low twist, Lopi style 2-ply Icelandic yarn. I made this back in 2016, and I actually did it on my spindles. I did it on my Hound Design spindles at that time, and it was a Spunky Eclectic Club at that time. And I made these great fingerless mitts, and I meant to bring them to show you guys, but I actually, to be honest, I completely forgot to grab them. One of my favorite things about spinning Icelandic when it's in this type of a preparation, and it was the same type of preparation when it was the Spunky Eclectic, is that this is tog and thell together. So when we talk about Icelandic, we're talking about the inner and outer coat, and we're talking about tog and thell. When you have a fleece in front of you, you can decide what you want to do. You can separate the tog and the thell, and you can spin the tog, spin the thell, keep them separate, and see what you can create. If you have a fleece and you have the opportunity to do that, I would highly recommend that you just go through the sampling. You don't need to spin the whole fleece that way, and you certainly don't need to do big samples. But just for the experience of going through spinning the outer coat and the inner coat, the tog and the thell. And that's when you're talking about Icelandic, that's the correct language. When you're talking about any other double coated fleece, it's just inner and outer coat. So with these preparations that we get sort of that are commercially prepared, it's the tog and the thell together. And so one of the questions that was asked was like, how do we cope with this? Because you're kind of dealing with like a really interesting blend. You're kind of dealing with, because you're dealing with multiple staple lengths. And if you take some mini combs and you start combing this to see what is in there for staple lengths, you're going to have a lot of variety. But what's going to happen is you're going to have some longer bits, and you're going to have some shorter bits, and you're going to have some really short bits. And the trick will be to figure out where you want to hold your hands and how far apart and what works for you. And then the other thing is, if you deconstruct a lot of the Lopi yarns, you really get a chance to really get in there and really like untwist them and have a look at them. Some of them aren't actually singles yarns. They're 2-ply yarns that are very low twist that are plied to look like singles yarns. So you sort of have to get in there and sort of see what you want to do. One of my favorite things to do with Icelandic when you're hand spinning them is to spin singles. So I thought that that's what we would do to this month, because I have a whole bunch of Icelandic in my stash right now for whatever reason, and my friend Elizabeth and I actually bought an Icelandic fleece at the fleece sale a couple of weekends ago that we're going to split when we get a chance to get together. And it'll be really fun to kind of work through that fleece with you guys and to sort of sample and share some of my explorations. But if you're going to spin this from the Spinning Sheep Breeds, let's do it as a singles and sort of see where we end up. One of the things that I find with a lot of these primitives, and we were talking about this in depth last week with the Jacob and the week before with the Shetland, is that often we underspin, we overspin these fibers, these wools. We tend to really put a lot of twist into them, and we make wire, and we just sort of over twist them. And remember that these wools are not super soft. They're not super, I would sort of put them more in the medium wool category. They're toothier. They're really hard wearing. There's a reason why they've been cultivated for thousands of years. And what I like to do is very gently pre-draft. And if you may have noticed that I don't strip the fiber down a ton. I don't go really thin. You could go to about the width of your pointer finger. But even then, just be careful that you don't get too thin, because we don't want to spin really thin yarn here. I'm going for like a DK weight, maybe sort of 11 wraps per inch would be perfect. And the other thing is that in compensating to not make a wiry yarn, we don't want to make a underspun loose yarn that's not structurally stable. So we kind of have like these two extremes. That's one of the reasons why I really like using drop spindles for these yarns, because you can get enough twist into them, but the heaviness of, say, a 35-gram Turtle Made or a 35-gram Hound Design or any of the spindles that are sort of in that medium weight range, they really work beautifully for spinning these yarns, because they don't tend to over twist them, and once they get enough twist into them, kind of like what we saw with Gotland, they tend to backspin, they tend to kind of push back against it. So has anybody spun a lot of Icelandic? Has anybody done a lot of this type of spinning in their experience? I'm gonna, while you guys are answering, I'm gonna pivot. And actually, the one thing that you'll notice is when you are working with this, there's a lot of shed. There's a lot of these longer hairs that'll start to come off. You can see them kind of falling there against my black t-shirt. So now my workspace is full of these fibers, but just be aware. It's not the end of the world, but just be aware that using an apron is actually a really great thing to do, because I've got it all over my pants here. I don't know if you guys can see that. So just something to think about and to keep in mind. So I've got a couple of little nests here prepped and ready to go, and I'm just going to back up here so that you guys can still see me, but you can see the wheel. Now, I've done a couple of things ahead of the podcast to get ready. I put my standard flyer on, so I generally 99.9% of the time use my fast flyer, not my very fast flyer for the Lendrum when I'm spinning samples and stuff, but generally I use my fast flyer. So this is 17-1, 15-1, and 12-1 for this type of spinning. And I did this for Massim singles. I've done this for Targi singles. I tend to go to my standard flyer, and I tend to go to the 10-1. So there's 10-1, not 8-1. Yeah, 8-1 and then 6-1. So I've gone to my 10-1. We'll start there and we'll see what we end up with. So we're thinking sort of slower. We're thinking about preserving air in this yarn. We're thinking about, just really consistent drafting back, because we want to make a really consistent singles. And we're looking for about 11 wraps per inch. So on here, we're looking for sort of about the thickness of my leader here, which is 2 strands of 4/8 cotton, because I looped the 4/8 cotton. So we're going to get started. The big thing with this is you don't want to draft back too far. We've got short bits in there. We've got short bits in there. We've got longer bits. We don't want to overspin this yarn because it's going to feel like rope. The uptake is just a bit too high. We're going to keep our feet slow. Draft, draft. This is actually even a bit too thin. Draft, draft. This is gonna, it's not gonna poof like Targi or Polworth, but in making our singles, it is going to, we're allowing some of the air to remain in there. So we are going to sort of allow, we're not gonna smooth it really super firmly. My fingers are just skimming along the surface. Greta Lynn says that she's spun about 3 fleeces of Icelandic. I know it's one of her favorites. Her and I talked about that. I spun my Long Way Homestead Icelandic. Made a soft singles yarn. Spins up fast when you do it that way. Yes, it does spin up very, very fast. Yeah, and I love Icelandic singles. There's just nothing like them. So when you're spinning your singles, regardless of what the fiber type is, you don't want to overspin, because what's going to end up happening is when you finish your yarn, your singles yarns are really interesting because you're not plying them against anything. They're not going to go back and be plied, right? You're leaving them this way, and you don't want to put so much twist into them that they're going to really be kinky and curly when you go to wash and finish them. but you need them to be structurally stable enough that they can withstand the washing and knitting or weaving process. I have woven with singles. It was fine. It worked really well. None of them broke. I just was very gentle with the warp and I didn't tighten it really super aggressively. I did it on the Jane. People make spinning Icelandic fleece and fiber their entire project for their master spinner. So like for their final project. So, you know, spinning Icelandic and getting it right, quote unquote, is a whole study unto itself. And I know it's intimidating. I was really intimidated when I first came across it, but you know, I think playing with it and trying some different things and just letting your fingers do some of the feeling. I'm not drafting back particularly far. Like I'm only drafting back about half an inch, maybe an inch, but that would be pushing it. My fingers are very, very light. You can see that some of the guard, I'll zoom in for you guys. You can see on my fingertips here, see how my thumb still hasn't healed. Some of the outer hairs, they get kind of stuck on your fingers, and that's okay. You just want to, I went up to 6:1. It's just a bit too fast. I know, and I'm a slow treadler. It's just a bit too fast for my hands as I'm talking, and I'm going really slow. So you can see how some of the outer hairs kind of get caught on your fingers. You kind of carry them along, but just lift your fingers up and that'll let them go into the yarn. How do you know that the yarn is structurally sound? When you tug against it, it's not continuing to draft. So if it's not continuing to draft, you're good to go. And it's going to be structurally, there's enough twist in there. But if you tug on it and it continues to draft apart, there's not enough twist, okay? And just be careful when you do that, because then what ends up happening, like what's happened to me, is that the twist that was in the yarn further ahead went down into the singles down here, and now it's untwisting. So fuzzy bits to fuzzy bits. What I often find with my singles yarns and with my low twist yarns sometimes is that I get to that point where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm totally putting enough twist in. It's totally fine. No problem. And then I start to skein it and it's under twisted. So, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it falls apart, but it definitely means that it has to be really, really fulled in the washing process. And sometimes that can be a bit disheartening, because I knit the Daybreak shawl by Stephen West. And the singles that I used for it, you know, I was playing around with really low twist singles. There was some great articles in Ply magazine about low twist singles and making a twist angle of something like 17 degrees. And it was just fascinating. It was in the singles issue. And I did that. But what ended up happening, unfortunately, was that the yarn wasn't structurally stable. And I ended up... unfortunately, there's places in the shawl where I know the yarn is not structurally stable and it doesn't have enough twist in it. And so what I did with the shawl when it was done was I washed it in extremely hot water, but not so hot that it would break the dye. And I let it kind of soak in there for a while with some soap, and I sort of agitated it a little bit, and it fulled the shawl. And the nice thing about that is that by fulling the shawl a little bit, it ended up like I can wear it. Although I haven't worn it a lot because it's so big that it's actually kind of hard to wear. So, and being out of Targhee, it's quite warm. So yeah, just kind of one of those things. You guys have lots of questions. Why is Icelandic singles called Lopi? I think Lopi means unspun, and pick to Lopi means a plate or disc of unspun. Thank you so much for those definitions, Brittany. These are you know, Icelandic words, right? So it's not that Lopi is an English word. We have to remember that these are like tog and thal. These are Icelandic words. Let me just get into the chat and make sure that I'm answering. Never spun Icelandic. It's on my ever-growing list, though. I know what you mean, Alicia. I didn't realize that Lopi was a 2-ply. No, it's not necessarily. Some of it's 2-ply, some of it's singles. The thing is that when you're looking at Icelandic yarns, when a yarn is labeled as Icelandic and you have a chance to deconstruct it, take a minute to see if you can untwist it. If the yarn shop owner isn't looking at you, and you can just kind of gently untwist it and see if some of it is 2-plied and some of it is singles, because some of it is singles, but some of it is 2-ply. I can't remember what store I was in, and it wasn't Let Lopi, which is sort of the one that we see the most for like a yarn brand, but I started to unply it. I can't remember what the brand was, but it was labeled as Lopi, and I started to untwist it a little bit. It was this beautiful worsted weight, very, very toothy. I don't think most people would be able to wear that next to their skin. And as it was untwisting, or like as I was sort of untwisting it and having a look at it, it was a 2-ply. So just have a look. I know, right, Kelly? Don't ruin yarn, you guys. Buy it and deconstruct it at home. And actually, if you do, because a lot of these yarns aren't really super expensive, if you buy a little ball of it and bring it home, you can hook it up. There's a great workshop on Long Thread Media. And if you have the all access membership, actually, Autumn and I were talking about this past week. If you have the all access membership to Long Thread Media, you get access to all of the previous workshops and all of the stuff that's offered. And there's a workshop on there by Patsy. I can't remember her last name. It starts with a Z. She's written lots for Ply Magazine. She's very, very well known in the spinning world. She's just a wealth of knowledge. She takes a card with a paper clip, and she actually calculates, like, by untwisting the yarn and counting the number of twists in the plied yarn, and then she does it again in the singles and untwist it. If you take the time to do some of those exercises when you're first starting to and learning how to spin, oh my goodness, you will just have your mind blown about what is actually in there for twist in some of these yarns, and the lack of twist. And here we are worrying about how much twist we put into our singles, and is it enough? And generally we put in like enough to make a structurally stable yarn, and yet commercial yarns are grossly underspun. So just something to keep in the back of your mind. It's on Long Thread Media. It's not on Craftsy. Yeah, so super interesting. Icelandic, one of my faves, says Jenny. Yes, totally. Recently ordered some Icelandic fiber. Looking forward to trying it now. That's fantastic, Samantha. Yeah, the Long Thread Media All Access membership. I agree with you, Suzanne. It is well worth it, and you also get a spin-off subscription with it. The other thing is that there are some videos on there. Oh, thank you, Alberto. Yeah, Patsy Zawiskowski. If you get the all access membership, you get the magazines, but also there's videos on there that say that they're not available, but just message them and they will unlock them for you and let you have them. The ones that they won't let you have are like the Respect the Spindle by Abby Frankmont and some of those ones that are sort of where there's copyright issues. But most of the old stuff that's on there it's all available. So anyhow, even if you just subscribe for a couple months and you'll watch whatever you want to watch. I have to admit, I've been falling down the rabbit hole of some of the spindling workshops on there. I watched them years ago, and now coming back to them again, it's been really fun to watch. So that is the Icelandic. If anybody has any questions about it, I have to say, spinning through all of this stuff and forcing myself to do it weekly, I can really see the argument for some of these breed study packs. I know that there are a lot of there's a lot of people in the community that have some of those packs and have bought them over the years. You can get them on Etsy, and there's different fiber people that offer them, and you can spin through all of these different kind of 1 ounce samples. I can really see the argument for some of that, because spinning through this stuff week after week and kind of forcing yourself to work through it, it really makes a big difference with your with your spinning, because you're constantly having to adjust and change. So even if the finished yarn looks similar, it's just not quite the same, going from, you know, Jacob to Targi to Rambouillet to, you know, a down. You know, they are different in their own right. And when you start to feel them and swoosh them, I can really see the benefit. So I've got 3 plying balls to work my way through over the next week or so. I might actually take these today and just kind of work through them as I'm at Knit City. I've got my breeding color study, the white set of WnS from our Jacob study that we're doing right now. I also still have my plying ball of the Corriedale and Merino that I did over the course of the summer. And then I've got more of my black Jacob to go. So what ended up happening with my Jacob, this is from World of Wool. I'm doing it as part of our breeding color study, but I've been talking about it here on the podcast as well. I did this on a variety of support spindles, drop spindles. It was just kind of whatever spindle was free. When I got sick of a spindle, I took a page out of Diana's book and I would swap up spindles. So by the end, I think I used like 4 or 5 spindles, maybe 6. My, where is it? My steampunk plying spindle, for whatever reason, as I was winding on and as I was doing my plying, normally I'll get, you know, a full 100 grams on here. This the gear one. I love this spindle. As I was plying, for whatever reason, I guess I didn't wind it on tightly enough, because as I was spinning it and as I was plying it, the cop was getting messier and messier and messier, and it was actually starting to come off. I don't know what was going on. I have no idea. I've never had that happen before to that extent. So I came to a natural break where I had added singles at the same time, and I just decided to skein it where it was. So this is the first little bit, and these are the singles, you know, that were spun from all different types of yarns. I have not washed and finished this yet, but the yarn is incredibly consistent. You know, the singles, you would never be able to tell that they were spun on a whole bunch of different spindles. And I find that my spindle spun yarns are really consistent. For whatever reason, I think it's the dropping of the spindle, especially with drop spindles. Whether it's a Turkish spindle, a top whorl spindle, it doesn't seem to matter. Just that dropping of the spindle and creates, for me, a very, very consistent yarn. So I'm looking forward to plying up the rest of that. And the other thing that I finished this week was my Jacob from last week. So I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. This is the Sweet Georgia Spinning Sheep Breeds 2 ounces from last weekend. So this is the Jacob. And it's incredibly, it's got good bulk. It comes right back up to when you squish it down, it comes right back up to shape and form. It's got lots of air in it. It's got a really nice twist angle to it. Again, this is not washed. So it's a wee bit flat looking, but that'll bloom. So will this one. They'll both bloom in the wash water. So 2 skeins of Jacob spun and almost finished. I still am working through the Shetland from a couple of weeks ago. I just haven't been able to get it back onto the wheel since we finished it. And then the other thing that I was working on this week was my 50-50 merino silk singles that we were working on in the wool circle. So this is the Casbah colorway and the Metals colorway. And I have to admit, there is this part of me that kind of wants to ply these together. So I'm still not totally sure what I want to do. The colors are so similar. And the Metals colorway would really kind of fade into the background with the 2-ply. So the Casbah, like this gorgeous kind of coral color here, it's very similar to my hair color, actually, funnily enough. Sort of this rusty red auburn color and the purple and this gorgeous goldy orange. They would work in a 2-ply with the Metals. So I'm not sure what to do. Kelly's saying to do it. Yeah, I'm really torn. So what do you guys think? I totally agree with seeing them plied together. The gray is in both. Exactly, ply them together. Okay, everybody's telling me to ply them together. I guess I should. I just need to rewind them back to the beginning, and then Hannah says that would be so cool. Okay, I will do it. I have to take a deep breath. You guys may have noticed, I don't love combining colorways. It's not my favorite thing to do. And I don't love a solid with a variegated. It's not my favorite to apply those together. But when I saw them sitting there, and they've been sitting here almost all week, I finished the metals colorway yesterday morning with Eve. And now I'm kind of torn. Yeah, you guys are all telling me to do it. Suzanne's absolutely right. Play, have fun. I'm always telling you guys to do that, aren't I? So I had a bit of a win this week, and I wanted to share this with you. This is for I'll share all of this content in more detail and video and whatnot in November when we do our breeding color study content. So, oh, Sherry, that's not a bad idea. Would they work woven as a scarf as singles? I don't know. It's so fine. I spun it so fine. Like it would be like 40 ends per inch. And I don't know if I have enough yardage, but that is not a bad idea to think about, Sherry. That's not a bad idea. Or making two plies and then putting them into a scarf. Anyhow, I got this spindle last weekend. I actually received it right after the podcast, funnily enough, and I will put a link in the show notes for this spindle maker. I actually was on top of it this week and was able to okay, what spindle is this one? Because of course I couldn't remember my silly salmon from last week. I felt so badly afterwards. So this is, I have to press enter, Rachel, to actually share the link. This is Volchuk Arts, and this is one of their spindles. It's called, it's just one of their support spindles. They just kind of label it as support spindle with metal tip and double-sided spinning bowl. So the spinning bowl is double-sided, and you sort of hold it like this. I ended up getting the 22 centimeter one. It's the one in the middle that's the 28 grams. I sort of was like, I'm not sure if I want the bigger one or the smaller one, so I'm just going to go right in the middle and be Goldilocks. So this ended up coming in the mail. Actually, it took a bit to get here. It wasn't, I ordered it before we left for Liard, so it took about 6 weeks. I think that's what it said on the shipping that it would take, and it was about that. It was beautifully packaged. And I've been kind of waiting to play with it all week because I just haven't had a chance with the kids and whatnot. And the funny thing is Diana ended up getting one at exactly the same time. So we totally should have gone into it in on it together and saved on shipping. But anyways, I sort of ordered it right before we left. But I started the gray from our breeding color study last night. So this is only like half an hour of spinning, and this is a big win for me because WnS support spindle spun in about half an hour. This is less than 30 minutes of work. When I first started playing around with these and making support spindle spun yarn, I haven't even applied my first support spindle spun yarn yet. That's why this needs to be applied. And then this one here, as I've been working my way through, I have been finding that I've been getting faster and faster. But the other thing is just the comfort level with it. When I first was playing with it, I think Crystal said in the, that's so weird. I looked down and there's Crystal. She said in the Slack channel this past week that she feels like she's finally a spindler. And I really get that because that struggle bus of trying to keep the spindle going, parking and drafting, making a relatively consistent singles, and just kind of playing with it and getting a feel for it. You just feel like you're all thumbs, literally. And of course I injured my one thumb, which seems to be back to normal, but I've been very, very careful because I can feel it. Like as the 30 minutes was coming up, I was like, nope, I need to put this away. My thumb is starting to bug me. So it's been really interesting to sort of walk this path of being a learner again and sharing it with you guys and having the outlet to be able to share, because it really resonated with me when Crystal said, like, I think I'm finally a spindler. I think I can finally say, that I'm relatively comfortable. And one of the biggest things that I have actually found was the biggest stumbling block, if you will, for kind of lack of a better word. Sorry that there's a little bit of banging in the background. It's Nora working on her loom. Is that as I'm drawing out, one of the things that I have found has been really helpful is if I actually pull the fibers out into a V, and make like almost kind of like a drafting triangle like we do on the wheel. As I'm talking, of course, it's not working quite like it does when I'm not talking. But I have really found that creates a really consistent yarn for me. I haven't been making a temporary cop on this one because it's a little bit shorter, and I just have been finding that I don't really have the room on the spindle to be able to do that. But I have been finding that, like, as I'm spinning and as I'm adding more and more, just very, very, very slowly, other than when I get sort of a thicker bit where I have to double draft, I have been finding that very, very slowly I've been ending up being able to actually like draw out while the spindle is turning. And part of that is just having that drafting, those fibers in that drafting triangle and holding them like that, and then drawing back the same distance every time, adding some twist and then winding on, so that as I'm working and as I'm drawing back the same amount every time, but also this allowing the same amount of fiber to come into the drafting zone every time. So because that's been a big thing, is like if you don't have fiber to spin and to offer to the twist, you're going to get thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner, because you just don't have enough fibers there to actually offer the twist. I sort of think of it as like an offering. Like it has to be there to be able to actually get twist into it, right? You can't sort of just expect that the twist is going to, like, where's it going to go, right? And that's how we kind of get these thin, really, really thin bits in the singles themselves, because you end up with these areas that are just thinner and thinner and thinner because you're not offering any fiber in your drafting zone. So that has been like revolutionary for me. That has just worked really, really well, I have to say. And then some of these sort of areas where you end up with these sort of, you know, almost kind of, they're not thick bits per se, but they're just kind of these areas of like, you know, texture where there's some carded fiber that sort of, you know, created a bit of a nap, but bigger than just a nap. I've been letting, for the most part, I've actually been kind of just letting them go. And then when I get twist up into this drafting zone up here, and I sort of end up with these fibers that are sort of a little bit twisted, and I can't get the triangle back, I just draft through it and just kind of keep on going and then try to create my triangle again. So I don't know if that's helpful. I would love to hear what other people have found to be helpful. The biggest thing has just been like noticing that I feel like I'm just speeding up a bit. Like I just am like, oh, like there's just that confidence of like, I actually know what I'm doing. It has probably taken me, so I found this really helpful when somebody shared this on another podcast who was learning how to support spindle. It has taken me, this is about 2.5, almost 3 ounces of fiber. This is, how many grams are these each? I'm not exactly sure, but this is about 25 grams of fiber about. So this combined, this is probably about 4 ounces of fiber, maybe 4 ounces. And then I had some other singles, those other 1 ounce bumps that I was spinning before and making into Rolags. That project's kind of on hold right now just because of everything else that's going on. But I think when I hit the end of this, I really started to feel comfortable. It was like all of a sudden just something clicked, and all of a sudden it didn't really matter what the support spindle was. It didn't matter if it was on metal. It didn't matter if it had a metal tip. It didn't matter if it was wood on wood. It didn't matter. It didn't matter how pointy the tip of the spindle was. None of that kind of mattered anymore. All of a sudden it was like just working for me. So about 4 or 5 ounces, and that was sort of when things started to really, really click. Where I was like, not only can I do this, I could actually teach somebody else, which is, you know, that's pretty good. So yeah. Mary Jo, yes, more close-ups of support spindling, so that will be in the content in November, and we'll try and work that into the show over the next little while, because I'm definitely planning on keeping spindles front and foremost in my spinning, because I'm finding that I'm actually getting a lot more done by spinning on my spindles, which is kind of funny. So yeah, Claudia loves spinning from the fold on her support spindles. I've tried that. For me, it didn't work quite as well. However, I am going to try it again, because that was when I was first trying and wasn't kind of as comfortable. Because the thing is, spinning from the fold creates that drafting triangle. It's that same principle, which is probably why it works so well. Josie says she doesn't mind hearing Nora's weaving. It is exciting to see kids that have interest in fiber. My son used to weave a bit, but he lost interest getting into the teenage years. I totally get that. James isn't interested anymore. Like, he was super interested for a while, but now he's not. But it'll kind of ebb and flow, I suspect. So that's kind of what I've been working on. The last thing that I wanted to talk about really quickly, because the show is getting on in time, is my Yastava cardigan. I'm finally far enough along that I can actually put it on my dress form and show you. This has not been very much knitting. I've been kind of getting one or two of the waffle weaves done, you know, every week when I'm at swimming lessons, you know, soccer. When the kids are at tutoring, I actually take my laptop and I actually like do work during that time. So I've kind of lost that hour and a half of knitting, but it's really coming together nicely. I'm really enjoying it. I love the pattern. It reminds me a lot of Tinder by Brooklyn Tweed from years and years ago. Slightly different construction, different pattern, but just that lovely kind of textured knitting. It's not super fast because you're knit purling every single row, and there are rest rows, but you're knit purl, and then knit purl. So it continues, and I can see how this is going to really stretch and bloom and drape from that llama content. This is Estelle Yarns, 80% merino, 20% llama, I think is the ratio. And you build this as you build the raglans. So I'm really enjoying it. It's a great pattern. And yeah, just really, really enjoying it. So very, very, very slow knit. And I haven't pulled out my Lunenburg pullover yet, because I was going to work on that this week and just rip it back, re-ball the yarn, because it's going to be my knitting project when we're driving up to the shoe swap next weekend, because I just have to kind of get going on it again. So yeah. How important is the weight of the supported spindle in affecting the yarn you spin? I think you have to, Diana says, I have found that a heavier spindle will keep spinning as you draft, but a heavier spindle will get heavier to flick as the cot builds. That's what I was gonna say, because I actually found that with my Carry Cherry spindle, it was my first time trying it. It's quite light. It's about 18 grams. It's not particularly fast, but as it got loaded with the Breed and Color study, as it got heavier and heavier, it didn't necessarily spin faster, but it was easier to flick it, and it had a nice weight to it. Whereas when I was first starting, I felt like I was working really hard, and that is how my thumb got hurt. And I haven't found that being on the metal that it's any faster or slower. So yeah. Thank you to Diana for remembering to say, remember everyone to hit the like button. Thank you so much for saying that. A kick spindle is a different type of spindle. It's one that goes on the ground and you actually kick it with your feet. If you Google kick spindle, there's some amazing demonstrations. So yeah. A link to the pattern. It is in the show notes, Dana. So let me just grab it for you. It's by Jonah Haitala. And here is the link. And yeah. So that is kind of it. Now, we were supposed to have, as we go into our community participation for today, we were supposed to have all of the prizes and whatnot for Spindle Spun Summer to be done today. And of course, I'm away next weekend. We do still have a show, but I'm away. And I just wasn't able to get to it this week. It's just been way too crazy. So what we're going to do is the weekend that I get back, which is the weekend of October 16th. So not next weekend, but the weekend after, the October 16th weekend, we will do all of the prizes for Spindle Spun Summer. And so anybody who hasn't done their yardage yet, hasn't gotten their photo and whatnot, please get that posted in the next few weeks. The Ravelry thread and everything is in the show notes, which I will throw into the live chat for you guys. It's all there in the Ravelry thread, and we'll also pull some prizes from the Slack channel. I'm not totally sure how we're going to do that, but I'll try and figure it out. So yeah, we'll get to that, not next weekend, but the weekend after, and then we'll get some prizes mailed out. We've got a spindle coming from Mars that was donated. We've got a spindle from Diana Twist with a beautiful thing of fiber from her that she made, which is amazing. And then I've got some Rolex that I'll send out. So we've got, probably 4 or 5 prizes, which is just fantastic. So let's go into community participation. All right, let's have a look at, okay, so first off, we've got Julie. This is our breed and color study. For September, tell us about the fibers that you dislike and why. And then you can share that in the Ravelry episode thread that's in the Ravelry group. Lots of people have shared so far, which has been great to see. The thread is here. Or you can share in the comment section here on YouTube. So this is from Julie. I was blown away by this. This is her Jacob color study project. Very fun to think about in combining shades and tones into yarns, and how these yarns might offer contrasting relationships in the fabric. Also, this project completely removed my fear of Kemp. That's awesome. I just love this, Julie. I love seeing your process and all the things that you put in there and what you did. It's just fantastic. This is from Linda Sue. Finally finished the Jacob breed and color study, spinning, trying the gradient white, gray, black. Will make a 3-ply. It just seemed the simplest thing to do with the kit. Hoping to get a Sport DK weight 3-ply. Just realized I did not take a pic of the black singles. We'll do that. So this is the gray one, and then she's got the white one, and the black one she's already finished. So I'm excited to see this finished yarn. I think it'll be really, really pretty. So this is from Linda Sue. Thank you to Julie and Linda Sue for sharing. And there actually has been more sharing in the Slack channel since these were posted. I just honestly, guys, I could not keep up this week. You guys were just posting and posting and posting. So thank you so much for sharing everything that you've shared. This is part of our luxury fibers along. So this has been going all year. This is actually why I was spinning my merino silk. It's all part of our luxury fibers that we've been looking at this year, and really trying to sort of get over putting these fibers away and not spinning them, and really working with them. Nora, please stop. And really working with them throughout the year, and so taking them off their pedestals and working with them. So this is from Megan. She started her hand spun cashmere sweater. This is a 100% cashmere that she got at a garage sale. I think it was maybe even an estate sale. And she's been working her way down on this. It's going to be amazing. We shared this yarn about a month ago, and I was just amazed at how much spinning she had done. So just really, really well done, Megan. This is part of Zero to Hero. So hashtag sweater spin, hashtag use your hand spun, hashtag spin all the things, and hashtag weave with hand spun. So these are kind of all the projects that we're working on that are sort of the culmination of all the things, where you go from the fiber to whether it's a fleece or processed fiber, all the way through to the spun yarn, all the way through to the finished object. And this is Shauna's start on her. I'm working on this one now, although it is not hand spun, for the Hohi Fall Knit Along. I'm loving it. I'm not sure it would be a first timers brioche project, but after one other simple one, I think anyone could do it. It's not hard and it doesn't hold your hand through the brioche, but it doesn't hold your hand through the brioche techniques. This is actually Hohi's newest, one of her newest sweater patterns. And I have to admit, I cued it right away, which I generally don't do with sweaters. I kind of wait a little while, but this is called the newspaper pullover. I'll link it for you guys in the show notes because I cued it immediately. I just love this sweater. I don't know what it is about it, and I actually have some yarn hanging in our bathroom that's from West Coast Color, and the more that they've been hanging together in the bathroom and the more that I've been looking at it, the more I've been like, I wonder if I should put those together because they're quite different, but it's the same dyer, so there's some of the same colors, and it might actually work really well for this sweater. So I'm tempted to do a swatch and just see, but it's gonna take me a bit to get to it because, you know, life. This is from Sarah. I finished my second ever sock spin. The first time was many years ago, and I wore those socks forever until the puppy chewed a hole in them. The fiber is a merino nylon blend. It's going to be a 3-ply. The colorway is dark Halloween. Since I'm not a huge fan of Halloween, I loved this one as it isn't overly Halloween. I hear you, Sarah. Halloween is not my favorite. We used to get some terrible things in Emerge on Halloween and it just put me off. But I do love this yarn. It's beautiful. This is from Ashley. Welcome, Linda. You just popped in. So thrilled to make the show. The plied yarn is drying and I hope to post the finished pictures today. That's wonderful, Linda. Linda Sue, you'll have to share with us. So this is from Ashley. I love these humbug braid fibers collections, and this was actually, these colors are very similar to a colorway that they used to have at Sweet Georgia called Bourbon, but they actually had to discontinue it because the blue, just no matter what they did, it always ran, and so they ended up discontinuing it. But when I saw this, I was so inspired. So she just finished her first intentional hand spun sweater project. I just love this, Ashley. Well done. The colors of the sweater are perfect for your coloring. I bought the fiber at the end of 2019. It's Andrea Mowry's Comfort Fade Cardi. I spun 2 pounds of Paradise Fibers Odintalon colorway. It's Ravenclaw themed, which I thought was really fun. For a smooth 3-ply, I spun short sections of the top from the fold to add a bit of air, but to maintain the shine provided by the silk in the blend. I'm still a pretty new spinner. It's pretty amazing, Ashley. So it was amazing to see the progress in the singles from beginning to end. I'm so thrilled and I can't wait for cooler weather to show it off. Wear that thing with pride, Ashley. It's beautiful. Yes, Diana, I still have a skein. I still have some fiber of it too because it was my absolute most favorite colorway, and I ended up buying 2, and I spun 1 as singles, and the color was fine, and it was fine against a neutral. That was the Daybreak shawl that I was talking about earlier. Actually, Bourbon was the one colorway, but I still have another braid of it, and yeah, just don't put it in hot water. Like when you wash and finish your stuff, and when you've spun your yarn and stuff, just don't put it in really hot water because it'll bleed. Not all of them, but some of them. This is from Allison. I love this sweater. My second hand spun sweater is such a lovely soft cardigan. It's merino, alpaca, and mohair, so very warm. I really wish I could wait till I finish spinning to cast on, but it's too exciting. So now I'm getting very short of yarn. You're gonna have to spin some more. I think I'll use my gauge swatch to finish the ribbing. It's for my lovely sister. She's a gem. One day soon I'm going to make a cardigan for myself from my hand spun. The pattern is Cabled Cardigan by Irene Lynn. I love this pattern, this cardigan. I'm tempted to make one myself. But I always say that because, like, you know, we all want to make all the things. This is from Greta Lynn. I gasped when I saw this. This is her Little Twigs by Yonko Okamoto. The yarn was all fold singles. The black is a fin fleece I had milled into roving a few years ago, and the color work is 2 different braids of Malabrigo Noob Merino. My thoughts at the end were that there are spots where the fin singles got thin enough to raise my eyebrows. I'm glad I have some left over in case there is a catastrophe and a spot tears. It's surprisingly very light, and I can't see any areas of biasing. No, It just looks amazing. I don't think I will ever do a hand spun singles sweater again. 2 or 3 ply just will be stronger and give me more peace of mind. I totally get that. The pattern is quite an interesting silhouette. I made sure to block specifically to its measurements. It's sort of a one size deal, about a 50-inch bust. I'm pretty average, so if you were a smaller person, you'd be swimming in it for sure. I love the sleeves. Looking forward to fall, which needs to come quickly. I think I'm summered out. Me too, Gretelyn, me too. And I just love this. And actually the photo of the back of it really helps to kind of put it into perspective of like how much ease it is, because you can really sort of see the shape of the sweater. I just love this. I think it's fantastic. Thank you so much, Gretelyn, for sharing. And you know, going back to our singles conversation earlier, you can do a lot with singles yarns, and like there's definitely no biasing in her knitting. Like you can really see here the stitches are straight, but I agree with her about, you know, the idea of a 2 or a 3 ply being stronger and just giving you that peace of mind. But I have to admit, there is this part of me that kind of wants to try it just to see, so that you can gauge the wear and tear of different yarns. So yeah, this is the twigs. Amazing. Beautiful. Yeah, gorgeous. You guys are so talented. You guys are just amazing. So great. This is Sample Spinning and Play. This is from Amanda. The creation of, so our quote that we use for this is, the creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct. And that's from Carl Jung. Amanda shares, clearing out the stash a bit. This week I made Star Grove by Tyra Smith out of some old sample skeins I had from Swedish fine wool, natural white and natural brown. It is an interesting pattern because it is a combination of knitting and crochet. It feels good to use up some odd bits of yarn. They look much better as fabric. Yes, don't they always? Yeah, so good. And I like the idea of a crochet and knit hat. I think that's really a neat idea. And last but not least, this is also from Gretelyn. I thought this was really neat to show her process. This is weaving. I have all morning and until 2 p.m. to just work on embroidery for my silk moth weaving. That sounds divine. I hand stitched a lace backer to stabilize last week, and now I'm trying to figure out placement and design motifs. I can't wait to see this finished. You guys have been great encouragers to me to finish this strong. Thank you. Aren't those amazing drawings? I just think this is phenomenal. I really love seeing people's process. Gretelyn is an artist. She's she paints and does a lot of drawing, and it's just really cool to actually see people's process and see like what it is that they do and how they do it. You know, for those in our community who are you know, very process oriented, it's really neat to be able to see kind of what what people are doing. The knit and crochet hat, Josie, it's the where is the thing here? I've got it. It's Star Grove by Tyra Smith. I don't have the Ravelry link, but that's the name of it there in the live chat. So thank you so much for being here today, you guys. Thank you for sticking with me there. I know there's been a little bit of noise in the background from Nora, but she's been so amazing at just sitting and weaving and eating her breakfast and having her tea. And for those who are going to Knit City this afternoon, please don't be a stranger. Come up and find me, and I'd love to either meet you or to chat or just to see you. It'll be kind of weird to be together again. So until next week, there will be a show next week. I will see you guys same time, same place for our Canadian Thanksgiving. And until next time, happy spinning, everyone. Have an amazing week. I hope that it's full of fibery goodness, and I will see you guys then. Bye.